Hi, my name's Dexter, and welcome to Critical Strike. It's a show where I hope to look critically at an individual game, or mechanics and tropes in games in general, to see what they did wrong or did right. Now, today's episode is about Mega Man, but before we get into that, let's talk about NES games, because back in the NES days, games were hard. We all know that. That's where phrases like Nintendo hard come from. They did this on purpose, but not out of some hateful, vengeful place, but because it was one of the few practical ways to extend your gameplay on such a small cartridge. They wanted people to get a lot of time out of their game. This was in an age where the goal of the game was to get the player to the end of it so they could see all the cool stuff that you made. This was a time that both time and money were short for making games, so you had to prove to these people who had poured their lives into making this game that you were worthy enough to see what they had made. So through most of the NES era of games, you never saw, with a few exceptions, anything resembling any kind of easy, normal, hard dynamic. And most of the time when it did have it, it didn't change much at all in the game, or just gave you more lives, which didn't make the game easier, but let you play it longer before having to start from the beginning. But through the years and the console generations, we've come to a point where more and more games buy into this easy, normal, hard difficulty system, mostly because it allows variable difficulty and lets more people get through your game, and partly because it's easier and cheaper to change some health and damage values and redesign a level to be easier or harder. With this system, though, it's incredibly hard to determine at first glance what is the best difficulty for yourself, because we don't know what any of this means. What does normal mean in a game I haven't played? And easy in this game may be harder for you than hard in this other game, but still easier than the first game's hard? Ugh. And fucking, what is this? It's mountain climbing, fucking hiking? I don't know. And what is hell to hell? I don't even know. Realizing this, some games try to explain how experienced you should be, which lets you make a slightly more informed decision, while others have gone so far as letting you change your difficulty mid-fight. So what does this have to do with Mega Man? Well, in 1988, Mega Man 2, which was the first and only Mega Man game to have a normal hard difficulty for a long time, added an inconspicuous item that helped level the playing field better than its normal hard option, the E-Tank. All the E-Tank does is take your health wherever it may be and brings it back up to full. But there's a couple reasons why the implementation of this item is so smart. First off, you can collect more than one of them, and because you can collect multiples, then a boss you definitely can't beat by yourself, and even still can with 1 or 2 E-Tanks, you may be able to beat them with 3 or 4. This allows you, as long as you come prepared, to be equipped with however many difficulty reduction tanks you need to fight this boss. Secondly, you have to actually collect them as you find them. And since you actually have to make Mega Man go and get the tank in the game, it gives you more urgency to grab them when you see them. Because it's an in-game mechanic, you see it from a different perspective than an ENH system. Instead of seeing it as making the game easier, you see it as making yourself stronger, which is a much better motivator. One of the best things about E-Tanks is that it extends your playtime against bosses. The more you fight a boss, the more you learn to fight it, and the better you understand a situation, the easier it is to see a solution. Not only does the E-Tank make the game easier, but it does it in a way that prepares you for the real game and helps you master it, instead of an easier, weaker version of the same game. Now, E-Tanks are great and all, and I could talk about them all day. And mad respect goes out to the original Mega Man games, but I'm here to use a better example. Also for ease, I'm going to refer to games with easy, normal, hard difficulties as ENH. And now it's time for Mega Man X. After dealing with E-Tanks for 5 or so games, Mega Man X offered its own solution to the difficulty game. Remember reason 2 for E-Tanks and how I said it's not thought of by the players making the game easier, it's just making them stronger? Well, X just runs with that shit. This whole game is about getting stronger. That's its theme, so when you get a sub-tank, you don't go, "Oh, well, this makes the game easier." No, you feel good about finding it in the first place, and you're all like, "Awesome new thing that heals me. Let's see fucking Launch Octopus stop me now." Get a heart tank? This game didn't get easier, I became stronger. Look how fucking sick my health bar is. Get the X armor chest? I take less damage now cause I'm a badass. Get the X armor helmet? I can, break those blocks in this one spot right next to the capsule, I guess? The point is, though, that you never see them as making the game easier. You look at challenges in a different light. Because the game doesn't explicitly get easier, like switching the dial from normal to easy, you see a hard challenge as something to come back to when you're stronger as a player and a character. Every piece of armor, heart tank, and sub-tank you get is a visual representation of X and you getting stronger. In a sense, making the game easier feels good. Which is more than I can say for other games, where setting it easy can make you feel like a failure. The problem isn't that the ENH system isn't functional. It is. That's why a ton of games still use it, even some really good or critically acclaimed games. It's just hard to implement in a way that is functional, easy to interpret, and doesn't mess with the overall game experience. The thing with the E&H system is that if you pick too hard a difficulty for yourself, it's hard to convince yourself to go down in difficulty, and can ruin a game experience if the game forces you to start from the beginning to set the difficulty lower. It's much easier to just stop playing a frustrating game than it is to start over on an easier setting. The system fails when the player, who have to make an ill-informed decision at the start, choose a difficulty that's either too boring or too frustrating for them, when a higher or lower difficulty would have been perfect for them. What X does is set a base difficulty the entire game and allows you to make it easier by collecting tanks and power-ups. Hell, beating bosses even makes some stages that would have been more difficult easier. Like when you kill Storm Eagle and Spark Mandrill stage gets all dark and doesn't have those electric shooty things. Or when you kill Launch Octopus and Sting Chameleon stage fills up with water and some of the hazards aren't nearly as hazardous. Again, since the theme of the game is growing stronger, none of this is as frustrating as in the E&H games. When it gets tough, you go grab some sub-tanks. That not enough? You scour the game for more hard tanks or X-Armor pieces. Losing presents a different challenge since the game establishes that you will get stronger and then shows you that you have to find these items to do so. You choose between coming back to the boss or go on a search to make yourself more powerful. X allows you to make the game as hard or as easy as you like by managing in-game items and mechanics, which you never even think about, where some games can't help but reminding you that you've made a wrong decision, where you die too much and they go, "Hey, I see you're terrible at this game. Why not set it to a lower difficulty that'll better reflect your terribleness?" No one wants to say yes to that, and even if you realize it's true and you do set it lower, it doesn't feel good. It makes you feel weak and frustrated, which isn't what you want to feel in the middle of a power fantasy. What's worse is when a game without a difficulty setting does this, like the Super Mario 3D games, where they just give you an item when you come back that makes the level feel trivial. When a game is too easy, we can get bored easily, leaving a game you otherwise might have loved if you saw it through to the wayside because it just couldn't keep your attention. To be fair, there is a reason games do all these things nowadays. With gaming's audience expanding in the 3 decades since the NES, to a point where it's getting as big, if not bigger in some cases, as all other media, there's been a push for mass appeal, or at the very least making your game more accessible. They want more people to enjoy their games they made simply because they know that there are more people of varying skill levels that want to play it. I definitely agree that games should be more accessible to people, but I just don't think that the NA system is the only way. I believe that letting the player craft how difficult their games are using in-game mechanics is a powerful and underutilized system. It gives the player more urgency to seek things and gives a greater ping of excitement when they find a secret, as it might just help them defeat a tough boss or a treacherous level, not just, I don't know, unlock concept art? Or statues or something. Wow, this is pretty useless. E&H just has a lot of issues, and I'll admit it's been serviceable in a lot of games, but it just bothers me that so few games try other options. Some do, of course. Dark Souls 2, for instance, has a bunch of ways to make the game easier or harder with its in-game mechanics. And I hear that Resident Evil 5 adjusted the difficulty not just on what you set it, but also on how well you were doing, which I'm honestly not sure if this is smart or insulting. And then Shovel Knight has a whole system where you can make the game harder for yourself by destroying your checkpoints, with a payout of you get more loot. So when you do finish this hard challenge that you set yourself, not the game, then you get a bigger reward. I think there is just so much potential for more games to handle difficulty like Mega Man X did, and we tend to just default to E&H. In the end though, the E&H system is losing out, and being replaced by more and more RPG elements. Which, whether this is good or bad, is yet to be seen, because RPG elements do set the difficulty using in-game mechanics to make the game easier or harder for the player, but the trade-off is a bigger time investment. To make an RPG easier, the only way is to grind, and grinding tends to be both boring and wasted time killing the same thing. I hope though we get to see more games in the future that handle the challenge of difficulty in different ways, and sometimes our inspiration for solving our problems now lie in the past. Hey, thanks for watching my video about Mega Man. If you like what you saw, feel free to subscribe. And if you want something else to watch, here's a video by my friend Dylan about the 1966 Batman movie. And if you want to see me and him fight in Splatoon, you can go ahead and click right there. And if you agree or disagree with what I said, let me know down in the comments. Anyway, I'm off to make a video now that'll probably get me burned at the stake. So I'll see you guys next time.